Hey everybody, it's Bill Brandmeier again, back here with Movement is the Medicine. And you know, it's one of those things where I am so excited that we're here today. The weather's changing, the air is crisp, the fall is in the air, things are happening, kids back in school, that's all taken care of, football season started, and it's just an exciting time to be a part of this world, this humanity, this incredible space that we've got to create. And what's beautiful about it is movement allows you to get out into it. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Doug Hugendijk. Doug,
Yes.
welcome. I want to say welcome back.
I
right?
know, because it's been a while.
It has. It's
Right.
been too long.
It has.
And I've been worried about you. For those of you that don't know, and that's probably everyone who's listening right now, Doug has gone through some things personally that he wants to share. I've intimated last episode, episode 17. If you haven't heard that, I did a solo episode, Doug, without you, and I missed you the whole time.
I know. I missed being here.
I did, but I just covered this new report, the Kansas City State of Play. I don't know if you've even seen this thing.
No, I haven't seen it
The
yet.
Kansas City State of Play. Here it is. I don't know where we show it. Right here. There it is. Kansas City. We have it it's chock full of great information. It's done by the Aspen Institute Project Play group, and they identified some of the problems that we're facing with our kids and getting them physically active and moving. Would it shock you to know that 24% of the boys in Kansas City are getting 60 minutes a day, and the rest of them aren't, and 16% of the girls in Kansas City are getting enough 60 minutes of physical activity a day, and the rest of them aren't?
You know, it's shocking, right, to think about that, and you know how maybe we can take steps to try and influence that, right? So,
We're moving as a medicine, buddy.
Right,
We're gonna do
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Well, you had an experience that put you on your back for a while.
which is inhibiting my movement.
Yes.
So, tremendously so.
And you learned a lot about yourself and about the system and about how things work and about bacteria on the skin and all kinds of stuff. So I want to quickly go through it. You were jumping on the tramp with your kids.
Oh, great morning, gorgeous morning, fall morning, and everything.
Dad out in the backyard.
Great, you know, with the kids and having a wonderful time. And then, you know, they wanted to get out or get off the trampoline and have breakfast. So naturally they jump off. And I said, well, I'm going to set the example and take the stairs down. Well, that was my problem right there, because I should have just jumped off, but my foot hit the tread at a certain spot. It fractured the tread and it went right through my foot.
Oh, God.
And, you know, I hit the ground like a ton of bricks. But then when I looked at my foot, I said, that's a problem. Right to KU Med, cleaned it up. But sure enough, within, you know, a day, it was infected.
You walked barefooted through the grass. You walked into your
Yes.
house barefooted. You wrapped it in something that probably wasn't sterile.
My little 8-year-old said, Daddy, you need a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, I do. But let's go with a tournament. Give me that T-shirt, and I wrapped it
and
in
you
a
went
T-shirt.
straight to the leading healthcare facility, the ER at KU Med.
That's
and
right.
They stitched it up.
They stitched it up. You know, sent me on my way with antibiotics, but within 24 hours, tracking infection.
Something was
Went right back to KU Med, and then admitted for 10 days, 2 surgeries later, and then I was discharged with heavy antibiotics, and luckily something I didn't need, which was pain meds. So I was able to avoid the pain meds altogether.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and
It's healing.
It's healing. The graft is still setting in place, still a lot of drainage from the wound, but non-weight bearing for 5 more weeks.
So. Well, there's a little background here. My family brought a product to market called ChloroPrep. It's chlorhexidine alcohol combination. It kills bacteria better than iodine and alcohol. It revolutionized the way skin is prepped throughout healthcare, right?
Amazing.
And the day you did it, my mom packed a bag full of ChloroPrep and had me drop it off at your house. Take this to Doug.
Yes.
And
With soup. With soup.
With soup. And by the time you got it, you were already headed back to the hospital.
I was
It was already
headed
too
back.
late.
Yes,
And that's how fast this works, and it's
Right.
crazy. And it probably, for those of you that don't know Doug well, this may shock you or not, but everyone in the hospital loved you. you. I went to visit you twice.
So kind.
We spent some time together talking and trying to figure out, what's best for next steps and everything. There's no next steps for Doug.
Literally. He's in his bed. He's in the bed.
But everyone loved you, and you had this internal look at the current healthcare system. Right. All of your nurses were amazing.
Incredible.
KU Med just did an awesome job taking care of you, although they probably caused the problem. No one's to blame, but when I saw the picture of your foot stitched up, I was like, they didn't clean that very well.
It was like a step away from what you would imagine Frankenstein's foot looked like. It was a wonderful stay at KU Med. It wasn't the Four Seasons, but I was very well attended to, and the people there were amazing.
All right, I want to get on because we have this awesome guest here, and I don't want to keep her, and I really appreciate having her here with us. I just want to ask you one last question. What did you learn about yourself through this experience of lying on your back for 10 days and now rolling around? And this is not the young, vibrant Doug Hugendijk that has trained elite athletes forever, right?
Right. I mean, you would go through things as a graduate student and in postdoctoral residencies and fellowships, which would put you in situations to be more empathetic to the patient. Like they would cast your dominant arm, so you can only use your left arm and things like that. This has, and then you did that for a week, just to get an idea. But this has been tremendously humbling, and I think just, further broadened my appreciation for people who are coming back from injury and the debilitation of what the mobility is of that person. So,
you were depressed.
Not ashamed to say it. Yeah, I mean, when you can't move around, and like before I could, figure things out on my own, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
So, right. Yeah. So.
Ann Rivera, how are you today?
Oh, Doug.
Yeah, I know, Ann, I know.
Yeah.
And all the years we've known each other, and you being a professional athlete for a certain amount of that time, very humbling experience for me.
So Ann Rivera is Coach Ann Rivera. She is gifted in helping executives throughout the country adapt themselves to challenging situations. What's your thoughts coming away from what you just heard from Doug, and how does that kind of apply to the world that you kind of navigate?
Well, I think there's a natural, depression or because you've gotten off track of whatever you have seen as your next step physically as a dad playing with the kids on the trampoline or whatever you're doing in your own life to maintain your health and wellness. And suddenly that trajectory just changes. And at your age too, when we start having injuries when we're older, it's the comeback from that can be challenging.
Right.
But the visualization can be such a powerful tool. For visualizing the healing or visualizing playing with your kids again and filling your system with that and firing and wiring that way of thinking versus the oh no, now I'm not going to get to do this or what's going to happen now, which is a natural result when you're laying there in the hospital and that's happening. But then there's a certain stage when you come out of it. It's okay, let's start forward thinking of how I want to be performing and engaging in my life.
Yeah. I'll be signing up, Ann.
Okay. Sure. I want to do a proper introduction. We are joined today on Movement is the Medicine by Ann Rivera, who's a performance coach, an athlete, and a speaker, and known for your work in helping high achievers, right? You lock in on the potential of people, and you use sports as kind of that metaphor for the work that you do. You have a background as a runner and a coach, and you combine your personal experience in performance coaching to impact some of our greatest thinkers. So cool experience, and we really appreciate you joining us today on Movement is the Medicine.
Yeah, background's volleyball, not running.
Oh,
that's right. Professional volleyball.
Oh, volleyball. That's even better.
Right.
I love it because volleyball's one of the number one sports for young girls in the country. It's the fastest growing sport for girls, and it's taken off crazy. And so our listeners will love to hear more about your background in that.
And this is a true story. I have a picture of Ann, which was in our biomechanics lab in Silicon Valley. And it's a great shot when Ann was with Pro Beach Volleyball, AVP. And it has her getting ready to serve the ball. And my daughter is just getting in the volleyball. And she said, and now that poster is in our garage waiting to be put up. She's like, Daddy, can I meet her? Do you know her? And I was like, yes, I know her. He's like, I want to meet her. So,
wow.
Right.
All right.
Nice.
So I apologize for missing that. I'm not perfect. I
Practice, not perfection.
Yes,
Michael.
yes. Well, so what we like to do in these situations is kind of go back to the beginning and talk about the experience you had with sports as a young person and as a young girl growing up. Was volleyball always your sport? Was that what you locked into early on? And you kind of trailblazed in some sense, right? Like that's now today everybody wants to play volleyball. Even the boys are getting into it.
Right.
Early on, I remember watching Karch Karai and
Oh, right. Yeah. St. John Smith.
yeah.
I don't even know how to remember those names, but yeah.
and some of the most
legends, right? Like legends.
Are those your people?
I mean, they're a little bit older than me, but I would
Okay.
say that those are
You look
the
extremely
volleyball
more.
people,
You
so they
much
were ahead
younger.
of the game
You look
when
much
I got to
younger
it.
than them for sure. Those are the old people. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. So, what was it like? Where'd you
yeah.
grow up, and what was it like growing up? And how did volleyball become your sport?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Manhattan Beach, California, which was like
Nice.
really the home base for volleyball, beach volleyball. And so St. John Smith and Karch Karai and, all these big Mike Dodd, these guys were playing at the beach where I lived. And so my mom played beach volleyball and I'd be down in a crib where those pros were practicing. So I got it right off the bat at a young age, but it wasn't my sport right away.
Right.
Like, so this is the 80s. And so at that time, I was into soccer. And so in high school, I was a varsity sport, 3-sport varsity athlete. And so that was track. So I was running, but for a period of time.
Yeah, there you go. That was in there.
Yeah, it was in there, and soccer and volleyball. But I mean, athletics and shining in sports was my thing. And so that was like my way of getting value. That's my way of, filling my time. There was like, parents were divorced and I'd be shuffled back and forth and I didn't do great in school. And so sports was the place where I felt like my best self. And so I poured everything into that.
Did you get to surf too? Did you do a little surfing?
Body surfing? I mean, I'm a mermaid girl. And so I did some surfing because I went to school at Pepperdine. So I got
Okay.
a full ride to Pepperdine
Beautiful.
for volleyball.
I got it.
And so when I went there was some surfing and stuff.
So split households, not uncommon, but also, what was that experience like for you? Were you pulled in both directions? Did your parents get along? Did it teach you lessons about life?
Yeah, it was very challenging. They didn't really get along. And so it was the like, what side of the court is your mom going to be sitting on, and they'd be on separate sides. And so at the end of the game, I kind of didn't know which way to go, so there was a lot of those challenges, but like they made it work. Like they worked together in order to get me to club tournaments, to pay for things. Like they made it happen because they saw that I had an ability that was a little extra special. And so, they made it work.
Were you affected by any positive experiences with a certain coach or certain coaches? Did someone take a role in your life as a mentor that has helped you?
That's like what I have become for many, many athletes,
Sure.
because I felt like that was a missing piece for me.
Interesting.
My high school coach, Daly Aldridge, was like, believed in me, and she was just helped me rise and be the athlete that I could be. But then when I went to college, it was like the opposite.
Right.
And so I've like experienced so many different types of coaches. And then for me, have realized that I need to be the grounding force. Like I can't lean on coaches to be like, bring me up or take me down. Finding that steady ground is really important.
Yeah. So your experience with multi-sport, we're promoting that all the time.
All the time.
We want kids to play as many sports as possible.
And, I know you, Ann, as a pro beach volleyball player and a European player professionally. I didn't know that about your background, but, it's interesting. NBA champion, whatever leagues, MLS, all the athletes that we've had on all have that multi-sport experience. And more recently, than not. And this whole concept of specialization comes in. And I think that's where parents and athletes really get into some hot water, if you will. So I love hearing that was your journey, and it led you to becoming a professional athlete. So that's amazing.
It also sounds like sports tethered your life. Like you said that you struggled in school a little, and that wasn't your thing, and sports gave you that anchor that kept you out of trouble, probably, and doing.
Well, I was quite a troublemaker and a rebel, and did not like to follow the rules. And
all right,
I pushed the limits, and I was, pushed the edge a lot. And that's kind of what defined me and made me. I mean, I wasn't a Rodman, but I was like in my own way. I had like a shaved head. I had like spiked blonde hair. I had like just the things. And
that's interesting.
The biggest thing I did that was, really, really trailblazing was like when I was done with college, I didn't really get a chance to play the way I knew that I could play in college. I'm 5'9". So at the time that was like, ooh, you could barely get away with playing in the front row being 5'9". I've got like broken fingers from the offense on the other side going against me because I had a smaller block. But at the end of college, I knew that I did not want to go on into the quote real world. Volleyball was life. And so I wanted to play professionally in Europe, but no agent would take me on. And so I decided at the time to do something pretty bold, which was like the internet was just kind of starting up. So it was really hard to like find contacts. Like, I'm like, I want to play in Europe, but how do I make that happen? I mean, now you could figure that out and like everything would be online. You could make that happen. Back then it was not like that. And so, I reached out to as many players as I knew that had played overseas. Some people have like lists that have addresses of coaches in different countries. And so I wrote a letter. I was a PR major. So I decided I would pretend to be my own agent. And so I wrote all these letters from like Ann's agent.
That's great.
And took them to the Pepperdine language department and had them translated into like Italian, German, French, and then like sent all these letters in the mailbox, the old school way, to about 100 different teams, like promoting myself and like just give her a chance. Right. Tell her what time and what day, and she'll be there, versus how it's usually done where an agent travels with like 12 players and they do scrimmages and exhibition games and coaches come and watch. And then they're like, I'll take that setter. I'll take that hitter. Instead, I was just going to go by myself, and I have my ball and my knee pads and my backpack, and I was just going to show up at gyms.
That's great. I love that. I've never heard that either. That's great.
And so that is what I did. I got 4 responses out of 100. And so I had this big map in my room with pins in it, and I was like, let's go. I got 4.
That's great.
So I'm guessing that
that is what I did. And each gym I showed up at, nobody would know who I was, because it was like the club person who, received the mail was the one that wrote back and said, okay, we practice on Tuesday at 8. And I would just walk in and just own it. And I would just step in the drill, and everybody be looking at me like, who is this person? Right. And I wouldn't understand anything. I remember the first one was in Belgium, and like hardly anybody spoke any English. So I didn't know what the drill was, what the coach was saying, what anybody was saying to me. I was just like, I will show you that you want me on your team.
Wow.
And so each place at the end, they would be like, oh, very good, but very small. So like, no, thank you. And I would just have to like leave the gym with my backpack and like look at my map and be like, okay, where's my next place? And sometimes I'd sleep in the train station, in the park, like, and there's, I have no phone. I just literally have like a map with a highlighter pen of like how to get to the next gym, which is like 2 countries away in like a different town. And so I was trying out every time as an outside hitter. And I could see that nobody wanted outside hitters that were 5'9". And so my very last place, and this is where my mindset tools just originated out of just pure grind and survival and like grit of like, I will make this happen no matter what. And so I decided that I'd come in and tell them that I was a setter. And like, I had never set a game in my life. It's like, suddenly I'm the quarterback versus the running back.
Wow.
And so I went in there and I was like, I learned how to say in German, like, ich bin Passerin, like I'm a setter. And so I stepped in, but I had like channeled every setter I'd ever played with. I mean, I played with Misty May in club volleyball. I mean, she's like one of the best setters of all time from that era. And so just like, what would Misty do? Like how can I set? And so I went out there and I had like a pretty good showing. And at the end, he was like, gave me a contract.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing. It's a great story.
Which is like a double-edged sword, right? Because I got the contract, but now I have to perform at a very, very high level in a position that I don't know how to play at all. And it's like, to the credit to setters out there, you can't just step in and be like, I'm a setter now, right? You got to run the offense, strategic choices, and it's all in German.
Wow.
Like Swiss German, and hardly anybody speaks English. And so, they gave me the strategy of all the sets and what we'd be doing. And it was just like very, very overwhelming.
Wow.
And I'm all by myself, right? Like I don't have Snapchat. I can't Google how to be a setter. Like you just have to figure it out.
Right.
And so on that team, I was a setter for the first month. And at the end of every practice, they would huddle together, and then one player would say, "Ann, you are not worth it today."
Oh, no.
Like that's how they learned the phrase. And then some days I was, some days I wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
I just have to go home and work on my puzzle and write in my journal, wasn't worth it today. Let's find out how I can be worth it tomorrow. And I just did that for 5 years.
Wow.
So I was my agent, and I figured every time I play a game, it's a tryout.
Right.
Because if I can beat you as an outside hitter as 5'9", maybe you want me on your team next year. And so that's how I continued to get on teams and learn the system and learn more about how to position myself. And I just made that happen. So 2 years in Switzerland and 3 in Spain before I came back and played on the AVP.
Okay.
What a journey.
There's a lot.
I've never
There's
known.
a lot there.
I never knew that story.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
I want to go back because it triggered something early, and then I want to kind of pick my way through how you shared this.
Yeah, let's just tell you this right now.
So
that's a movie script.
It is. It actually is very inspirational.
You grew up in the shadow of Hollywood. I mean, that's a movie script.
Self-advocation. You advocated for yourself. You decided, and this is a theme, right? A lot of the athletes have learned this, that they have to step up and say, I want to play, safety for the UFC Trojans. Or,
Right.
Johnny did. So where did you learn to self-advocate? Was that part of what took place in your childhood on both sides of your relationship with your parents? Was it something that you had to, were there times you had to fight for yourself and for your space? I'm intrigued by that because I think that sports teaches us above many different things, but to self-advocate, I think it's really important.
Right.
Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like when you have split parents and I was an only child, except for some steps and halves, but that wasn't like in my life at that time. It was a lot of survival mode. And like, I had to be super resilient and like independent and self-sufficient in like a deep, deep way. And so I feel like that taught me a lot of that early on.
Yes.
And then I feel like in all truth, there was a layer of fear that like my degree in college and starting real life, that it wasn't for me. And like, I didn't know what that was supposed to look like. If I'm supposed to, do something with this PR major, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I wasn't guided or mentored to pick a major that was really in alignment with who I was. And so it was out of fear of like, really, volleyball is all I've got.
Right.
So I pursued it to the ends of the earth, that's who I am. And so I need to keep finding a way to keep the fire going, because as soon as I go back to the US, then it's like, then what am I supposed to do? And at that time, I didn't trust that I could come up with something.
It was almost like it was life or death for you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So where do you think that came from? What were you afraid of the other? Were you afraid of the other side? Were you afraid of the 9 to 5, the boring life? Was there? That's just, that drive is so interesting to me.
It's a grit, fortitude, determination.
Yeah.
I mean, like you pick the qualifier. I mean, it's right
and then the four of the ones that said yes, you went, and the first 3, didn't work because you were the square peg in the round hole, and then you decided you were going to put yourself vulnerably out there to be the setter where you've never done it before, but you're smart enough to fake it, and you got it. That's cool. That's really cool.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's what I try to teach athletes. It's like, just be willing to play whatever. If you want to play, like, don't be so specialized even within your sport that I only do this. It's like, I want to play.
Right.
Play me in whatever you want, and I will find a way.
Right.
Well, okay. So it's obvious that you're a powerhouse. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how it felt? Did you feel out there on your own? Did you have great relationships with people that you met along the way? Talk a little bit about how you incorporated this life of sports into the whole person that you are. What did it mean to anchor yourself around sports? But how did that play out in your other personal relationships? And as things have progressed, what kind of people have you brought into your life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because at that time, I felt like it was me against the world.
Yeah,
and so I deliberately did not learn the languages in Switzerland, because I was convinced in school that I wasn't smart enough. And so I created this belief that I couldn't learn languages.
Well, I think you're brilliant.
So I didn't even try. Like, they gave me classes, and I had nothing to do all day except wait for practice and go to German class. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't go because I can't learn languages. And so I really sabotaged myself by not doing that. Because number one, I didn't understand what the coach was saying, hardly ever. I learned body language, and that's what makes me a really good coach now, is I spent years not knowing what people were saying.
Right.
And so I'd just be like making up like what I think's happening, reading people, like their eyes.
You're a body intuit.
Yes.
I love it.
I was very, very lonely and very mental. Like, when I got on the court, I could do my job. I got off the court, I'd just like be alone. And there wasn't like a lot of connection with other people. Swiss people tend to be a little bit more reserved and not so welcoming. And so that was a hard part.
Will your workout?
And I literally just coached myself in my journal, and I would write to me, and then I would respond to me as a coach almost.
You had such an intimate relationship
like 10,
with
15
yourself.
pages.
You had such an intimate relationship with yourself. Did you work out a lot?
I did.
Yeah.
I worked out a lot, and I'd be like, before practice, I'd be at the gym like 2 hours early.
Yeah.
And I'd be like running stadiums, hitting the ball against the wall, stretching, doing shoulder exercises, doing visualizations, like helping other, like I was like this fascinating thing, so like the other teams would want to try to connect with me, or I'd teach the younger kids. I always coached teams. Uh-huh. Whatever club I was with, even though I didn't speak the language. And so I'd just make a lot of sound effects and like demo things. And, so I would engage in that way, but I was very lonely and isolated and didn't really keep contact with people. I was in my mode, my life, my path. So that was not necessarily a positive, but I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Was there a time where you felt like you came out of that need to be self-protective and found yourself ready to give? Because obviously you've decided to give yourself back to people.
Well, Switzerland was very, very hard. But then when I went to Spain, all of a sudden it was just like carpe diem. Like everybody was just living in the moment, and everybody just wanted to get to know me. And Spanish was what was really challenging for me in high school. And so I was like doing the same thing, like, oh, I can't learn languages. But by this time, that's like a sad story for me, where I'm like, am I going to continue with that belief?
Right.
Because it's not serving me, and I'm like atrophied because I have nobody to talk to. Like, it's very like level 1 conversations with people that speak a little English, but I can't like process with anybody. I can't communicate myself, and that needed to change.
Right.
So in Spain, I had a pretty bad coach that didn't like Americans, and it was like during the Bush era, and they would be like all mad at me, like for things that Bush did. Right. And so he would yell at me and throw chairs and like just make this spectacle every time during games of like yelling at me really close to my face. And I'd be like, no comprendo, bro. Like, I don't even know what's going on, and you're just yelling at me like you're such an idiot. I'd be like so mad that he was taking advantage that I couldn't respond. Mm-hmm. And so the girls on the team were like, Anna, if you know what Ramon is saying to you, you'd be really mad. And I was like, oh, it's on. And it was like, that's all it took. And I was just like taking notes and like learning all the bad words and like learning every single second until I had my opportunity where he subbed me out of a game and he started yelling at me, and like something came over me and I was like, no puedes hablar así conmigo. Like, and I just like, in Spanish,
right. I got this.
It got quiet. Everybody was listening like, oh, the American, she's speaking in Spanish, right? And fired because he went nuts that I was talking back, and I got kicked off the team.
Oh, no.
Whoa.
But it was a pivotal moment for me because that's when language stuck.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up becoming a high school Spanish teacher,
wow.
The next chapter of my life, because I realized once I was in Spain, I was like, I didn't make as much money on that team, and I had to have another job. Mm. And so I got certified to teach English. And then I realized I am a teacher. I'm not a PR, that degree. I am a teacher in my soul. I am a coach. I am a like help people learn and lift them. And so once I started teaching, and I was immediately teaching executives in Repsol, which is like a Chevron in Madrid, high level, super high level, like vice president of Repsol. And so suddenly I'm thrust into this like kind of executive world where I'm like dressing nice and I'm teaching them, and I have this purpose and this drive and this understanding of like me outside of volleyball. And now I speak Spanish. And now my skill set is building in a different way that's outside of sports. And so then by the time I came back to the U.S., I was like, I got some skills here, not just spiking a volleyball.
Right. Wow.
Well, you're teaching us a lot, and I really, really appreciate it. It's mesmerizing to hear you talk about this journey that you've had, and I'm so grateful that you're sharing us this moment, this moment where you talked back. It sounds to me like it shook you free from some self-thought and self-doubt. And once again, that idea of stepping into your space and self-advocating for yourself, fighting for what you believe is right, and damn the consequences, right?
And we were on the number 1 team in the league.
Yeah.
And so then they went on to win the championship. And then the only other team in Madrid I could play on was the last place team in the league.
Oh, shoot.
So
now
I made it to the highest and then got dropped, but it was all worth it.
And I kind of want to talk a little bit about, bring Doug in and talk about injury and stuff. Did you experience injury? Did you have, my thought was, did you protect yourself from a negative experiences by being so isolated? And do you feel like you kind of you didn't get into complicated relationships because you were so self-protective? And then did that lead to being, to reducing the risk of injury too? Like, I'm always tying the physical and the mental together with Doug, because, we've learned that there's a certain amount of load capacity the body can handle, and there's also a certain amount of load capacity your mind can handle, and you build resilience by going through tough experiences, and it sounds like your whole life has been kind of a challenge and has helped you build resilience and grit and drive and determination, and you protected yourself. But did you experience injury? Did you fight back from injury, or did you avoid that?
In Europe, I think I just spent a lot of time with my routines. So I had a lot of pregame routines and postgame routines without any guidance. There wasn't like, this is the thing to do.
Right.
It's just what I did. And so I didn't have really any injury in the 5 years that I played there. I had like a confidence level there that was like an 8 to 10 at all times. Like, I don't know, that's just how I rolled. I didn't really dip all that much. And I think a piece of that like played into me being confident in my body and listening to it and taking care of it. But when I came back to the US, and then I was playing on the AVP, so Europe was indoor, 6-on-6. I did play on the Pro Beach Tour in Spain, which was a pretty epic highlight. It was like 2 weeks in every beach city in Spain. Yeah.
Amazing.
That was pretty great. But when I came back to the US, playing AVP level volleyball is a whole different ball game. And so the toll on my body by that point, I'd been playing a long time,
Sure.
at a high level, like college level. I had like a hernia. I had like all kinds of things from all the work I had to do in college. But when I played on the AVP, the amount of training and hard, work on my body was just really, really intense. And then it's 2-on-2. And that is where I cracked mentally. Like, all of a sudden, I was just not this 8 to 10 level confidence. Because 2-on-2, a lot of times the strategy is pick one player and try to break them. And so I was I received that a couple different times.
Sure.
And once was my hometown, Manhattan Beach. Whole hometown comes out to support me. All my former coaches. I was teaching high school at the time, so my students are coming. I'm like in a bathing suit, which is a little bit vulnerable in front of your high school students. So there's just like a lot of factors that were playing in. And I was playing Misty May and Carrie Walsh, and she aced me. It was something like 10 to 15 times in a row. And usually if that happens like once or twice, it's like, oh, but that many times is like, I was ready to like run out of the stadium and just swim in the ocean and swim to China. Like, I just didn't want to continue.
Right.
And so that's when my mindset was cracked. And there was this like cavern that opened up that brought out all the stuff that I'd been like hiding and stuffing and pretending like I didn't have anymore. Right. And it was all there and it came out. And so that's when I started working with Dr. Mike Gervais, who's one of the like highest level sports psychologists on the planet. And he pretty much saved my life. And then I had some of the most success I ever had playing and the most joy, because by that point I was in my late 20s. I've been playing for a long time. And I'm getting to the point of in my final moment of getting injured, which was I went back to Pepperdine to play in the alumni game. And in that game, I snapped my Achilles tendon. Ugh. And so I've been in the boot and that was the end of my career. Right. And so at that point I was 31 and I've been playing for a long time, and just like, I didn't want to give it up, because by that point it really had become my identity. Even though I was a high school Spanish teacher, that was kind of boring compared to like this big life I was living, as a professional volleyball player. So that was the catalyst for a big radical change in my life, which has kind of brought me to what I do now, and like how rad my life is now and versus then when I thought it was all over and like, who am I now?
Interesting.
And it's like, now I know who I am.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's really cool. You didn't really stress about financial stuff. I mean, I'm sure volleyball isn't the best paying profession, but you seem to.
It's a very expensive hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. But so you had to supplement with other jobs. You had to find.
Well, yeah, because I was. Well, in the beginning of the AVP, I was like waitressing, and like I was getting my teaching credential, and so that, and I had to move back home and live with my parents, like in Manhattan Beach, in my 30s, late 20s. It was the only way that I could make that work.
Yeah.
But plus, I was getting my teaching credential because I had to go back to school since I didn't get a degree in that. And so then I was teaching full time. And so I'd get up at 5 a.m. and like go train with my partner. And then after teaching all day, I would have to go, to the sports performance to do all the strength and conditioning, and then do one more practice, and then travel on the weekends. It was intense and it was a lot, but I was teaching full time at one point. And so that helped. And I had some sponsorships. And then if we did well, then I would make some money, right. But it was like barely breaking even. It was top heavy, like the first 3 spots, top 5, you would make a good amount of money. And then below that, good luck, you're going to break even.
Are the girl volleyball players now in college getting NIL money?
I believe so.
I think they are.
It's so big right now. It's just blowing up college volleyball. And I work with Eastern Oregon University. And so like I just came back from a week at their school. So I stay there and I do like high level mindset training for the team every single day. And so they're in a classroom with me, and then I go to practice, and then I integrate what I've taught them into practice. And then I do one-on-ones with every girl. So then I extract from them what's going on and then help them level up individually, and then do that as a team.
That's a great transition.
Right.
So, because you're teaching athletes, I can see how prepared you are to be able to teach resilience and handling setbacks and fighting for your, space. And I'm sure you instantly have empathy and connection to some of these young athletes that are figuring it out. And you're probably teaching them things that you wish you would have known when you were there, right?
And, Ann
I needed a me.
Right.
You needed a you.
Yeah. Like, I was just going to say, like, sharing your story, like going to Europe and like being so, just such a trailblazer going over there with no internet, like no, Google Maps or anything. It seems like a lot of what you were coaching within yourself then is now a perfect part of your professional identity, and all the amazing things that you're doing now with this platform and, AI. And I'm really excited to hear about that.
Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about what you see as might be the problem. I would love for you to talk to my daughters. I have a 20-year-old and a 24-year-old, and they're not elite athletes, but they could learn so much from what it means to battle through this self-doubt and this a challenge that seems like you've found your way through. I love that you had victory over this coach, even though he got the best of you and got kicked off the team, and that led to you learning Spanish, and then you're a high school Spanish teacher, and you've graduated into something big and different. Let's talk about the athletes that you're interacting with, and the student athletes that you just enjoyed a week with in Eastern Oregon, and what is it that these kids are experiencing with the phones and social media and the demands of everyone seeing them, and what the world has done to be so conflicted? And are you getting that sense too, that there's some big problems with our adolescents and that they need people like you in their lives?
100%.
Me too.
I mean, right. Actually, I've had like a very, very interesting past 30 days where, because I worked with the EOU women's volleyball team, and then I went back and worked with the men's team and the women's team. And so in 30 days, I worked with 44 athletes one-on-one and 14 teams. And so I work with soccer, volleyball, I just had a huge, huge month. And so what's really, really interesting is the data like that comes out of doing that many sessions with that many athletes across different sports. It's like, I'm still just like, my brain is bursting with, and I do so much with AI. So it's actually like every session's recorded. I have transcripts that's then collecting the data and collecting the patterns and collecting the themes and the red flags. It's like fascinating. And so like what I'm seeing a lot of is just this, unrealistic expectations. And so a lot of this has come like out of COVID, where it developed like these certain athletes that are college level were a certain age during COVID, right? Some of them are 6-year seniors that had COVID year, their freshman year in college, and then they get an extra year to add on. So that's been interesting as the college athletes, how old they were. They might have missed a high school season. That I have a lot of high school students I'm working with that were then junior high and in like different ages of development. And so then it created within them this like perfectionism of somehow then when they come out to their sport, they now need to do it perfectly. And this is like something that's developed where I see it across the board.
Wow.
Because I do all these exercises where I have to help pull out their negative thought processes and then put them up, and we can see what they are and we like take ownership of them. And so many of them are these, I have to do things perfectly. And then I like the expectation, the outcome over the process. They're so focused on the outcome. Right. And so a lot of that came through COVID of like scrolling or doing things where they're like immediate gratification. And so they lost the process of getting the outcome. They just want the outcome. And so then that's coming through in sports instead of like enjoying the process. They get super stressed out if there's like glitches or the ride goes up and down. They want the trajectory to look a certain way. And if it's not, it's like they can't manage it.
Yeah. Wow. It's a common theme. So,
and I have a question on that. So, Ann, is that a process which I'm not Mr. Social Media, but everything that is portrayed in social media format seems to be like sunshine and roses, like it's all success or the optimal, the best. This is the result. Is it a genesis of that? Instead of like learning the process, because you learn so much from mistakes. Right. And like, moving towards like where, all right, that didn't go well. Let me practice it again, or let me try to do that better. Right. Is that something where that developed from that kind of presentation in social media? Do you think, with your expertise and how you see it?
Yeah, I think looking good and not disappointing others or looking silly or looking bad in front of other people. Right. So the not disappointing my teammates, not disappointing my parents who are paying for this, not disappointing the coach. That's a theme that was really, really strong that we were able to uncover and help each girl take accountability that like every single one of you put that as like your top 3 out of 15 things. Right. If you're all feeling the same way, let's talk about that. Like, do you really feel like you're disappointing your teammate if this happens, And are you guys mad at her if she shanks a ball, or are you like next ball? Everybody's internalizing and mind reading and making assumptions about things. And I think that comes through social media, where they're assuming that shiny, picture of somebody doing something means that they live this perfect life. And so there's a lot of story building that isn't true. And so in a team dynamic, they're mind reading what the coach is thinking, what that face meant, what all of those kind of things.
I'm sure that you're being received really well because they're like, someone's listening to me and someone actually empathizes and gets it. Do you feel like, not that it's too late, because obviously it's never too late, and you're proof positive of that, but are we getting to these athletes? Have we already done the problem in middle school and in high school? Are we creating a problem that you're now solving that we should do something different when they're younger?
Well, I think it's starting these kind of conversations. Yes. And so that's what's happening more and more is this, the mental health piece. And so more coaches are knowing that this is important, but they don't know what to do. And so that's where I come in, where I go and talk with, like today, I'll be at a high school soccer program, and we'll be working on distractions. What are the internal distractions and external distractions that are getting in the way of you being able to perform? And so these girls have been getting it all throughout the season. So I'll go there every couple weeks, work with their team. And so the ones that are getting it consistently, because they need it to be reminded, you teach it to them one time at the middle school age or high school, there's maybe one that's a high performer that might be like hook on to it and use it. But it's like they need to be reminded to keep doing it and be accountable to it. And that's where I'm finding it's hard with the work. There's only so much of me to go around, because I need to keep following up with these athletes and check in with them. So like the ones that are working with me, I'm constantly checking in with them. And then they let me know, this is what's happening. I use this tool and this is what happened in the game. And then it makes it stick, because they're like exercising the muscle over and over. They're taking that instead of just reps of free throws, they're taking reps of mindset.
Yeah.
And so it's just like the body, right? Of all the reps you would do with Doug to improve. It's like, how many reps are you doing up here? But they need to be taught of what kind of reps to do. His coaches will say, like, be confident. Come on, be confident. Or let that go. And then they don't know how to do that.
Doug, I can't help but think that you're finding a lot of commonality. There's a lot of things that Doug preaches and promotes that I wish, I meet someone on the street and I'm like, oh, I wish you could meet Doug. He was like, I wish Doug could be here. I wish Doug could be there. I bet you feel like you're just like, how do we scale this? How do we make this more universal for everyone?
There's a phenomenon in my world where, you're getting an athlete from an injured state back to their performance level. And one of the things that you're evolving through that journey is a gaining of limb confidence and functional confidence, right? And it used to be in my trajectory of working with the athlete, or that'd be like the last third. But it's so important, and it almost it has to happen from day one,
right?
Where you start remodeling that. In my last conversation with Ann on the phone, you were mentioning some things, and I was like, yes, that's spot on. Yep. My appreciation for the cognitive performance variable has changed so much, where it's equally important, if not more so, to have those cognitive performance variables in place almost the day that you get the injury. Right, and you're coming back. It's just such a valuable asset to be working on and have strategies directed towards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of athletes who are injured, they're going to replay the injury, and then they refire and wire that physical pain and the sensations that were happening. And we need to fire and wire a new way of thinking of what that healthy limb looks like, or like the Doug who is healthy. And I don't know if you'll get on a trampoline again, but, playing with your kids and you feel strong and healthy and you're like seeing that and firing that is like a huge part of coming back from injury.
Right. Right. Well, this is a really great conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm again, I just appreciate you sharing yourself. In your work, let's talk about currently what's happening. It sounds like you're pulled in 1,000 different directions. You're everywhere. Are you so busy that you don't have to worry about building a practice? Are you still building? Where are you at? And how does this impact you personally? Like how do you feel today about Ann Rivera and how far you've come?
It's always exciting. I'm just a go big kind of person. And so
go big or go home. You and me together. Let's change the world.
So, I'm scaling because it's like I've been working because I'm family. So I live a big life as a mom. Like that's a huge part of my life is raising my kids. And so there's only so many hours in the day. Like I got to do pickup in an hour.
Sure.
And my day. And they used to come with me. Like I'd go do the soccer one tonight. They used to come and they'd sit in the back with me. Now they're old enough where they can stay home, which is a huge step. And so as I'm gradually, stepping out of having to be so involved as a mom, I'm figuring out how to scale. And so more groups instead of one-on-ones. Doing so many one-on-ones can be really, I do them here, but there's only so many hours to do that. And so I'm looking for, more of the college level teams, professional teams, and team builds for corporate, all of those environments I just love and thrive in. And then I continue to help all the local teams around here. And so, being an entrepreneur and running your own business is a lot of hats. It's a lot of things to do. Everything. So I'm constantly learning and growing and failing. And like, I've created programs where nobody signed up, and I'd be like crying in my office, like nobody wants it. And then I just have to be like, okay, and like find a new direction and like learn from it and move forward. Tenacious. So I'm just experiencing it all and moving upward and onward.
Tenacious.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's, when I hear your journey and from your earliest exposure, in sport and playing multiple sports to now, look at that mindset, right? And we hear those stats, that was just, released here in State of Play. How little, children are engaging with sport now and how distracted they are. They're missing out on building those key exposures through athletics that are so pivotal and really, gave you the opportunity to be resilient, resourceful, determined to do all the amazing things that you're doing now. And I think it's something which, is disheartening to hear. But when you look at the other side, like how can we influence this to get kids out there and more active, right, and engaging more?
Yeah, I feel like that we have a world where kids are feeling lost and they are untethered, and the idea that sports has anchored your whole life and that it's your life now revolves around the sports you love, and then now you're educating current elite athletes and executives that using sports as a metaphor, using the things you've learned to share. It's a problem the world has that the answer is people like you. The answer is bringing forward your thoughts and your engagements. And one thing I like about group engagement, when you have groups together, especially in physical activity and exercise, there's a vulnerability that happens within the group that the coach doesn't even have control over, where kids challenge each other and they're open to one another, and there's groupthink in a positive way. There's and there's overcoming things together as a team. All the different things that sports lends itself. Tell me a little bit about how you use that in being a mom, because probably the most important job you have is being a mom, and that's obviously you can help people. You've proven that, but even in my own life, I'm really good at sharing myself outside my family. Sometimes I fail inside my family. So talk a little bit about how you bring that home.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've coached so many parents because they're actually often a big part of the problem. And so I'll work sometimes with athletes, and I'll have their parents in a coaching program with me, like a life coaching program. I'm helping them separate from being so immersed in their kids' sports journey. And so through that, I've learned so much about the kind of sport parent I don't want to be. And in sport, it's influenced all of my life, but I also put all my eggs in one basket, and I didn't develop in these other parts of me that were really important. So my daughter is into jiu-jitsu, and that's been very interesting because that's not like a ball sport. I'm used to ball sports, and it's intense. And in the beginning, it was really hard for me to watch because if I were at a practice and she's it's mixed gender, and there's a range up to age 14 or 15, and she's 11. And so she'll be going with a guy that's just choking her out, and I'm watching on the, my heart rate's going. It's funny because I end up coaching other parents because I get really mad. I have a really hard time holding myself back if I see parents misbehaving at tournaments and at practices where I will pull them aside and be like, I would like to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Because they're part of the problem and they just don't always know what to do. So I've learned a lot from helping other parents about the kind of sport parent that I want to be. And so I've almost kind of pulled back pretty far of letting her have her journey. And so she has not competed in jiu-jitsu. And so she just practices, and everybody else goes to competitions because she says, I don't want to do that, and I'm not ready to do that. And so it's been interesting to allow this space to kind of encourage her, but not push her to be like, we're paying for this each week, and so you need to have this outcome, as opposed to you're learning so many incredible things, and let's just be good with that. And then actually this week she said, I was kind of thinking I might want to try a tournament sometime. I'm like, great.
That's great.
All right. We're here to support. I think that's such great advice, and I think you're exactly right. The opportunity that parents have, if they can get on the same page as the coach, to influence what happens to their child without pressuring them, without doing any damage, it's so real. It's like this triad, relationship that can be created if everybody's on the same page. And so oftentimes there's a disconnect, and the parent has their own desires and opportunities.
Their own agenda.
And what I love hearing about that comes back to that Canadian Institute of Sport document where they did this analysis on developing the lifelong athlete.
Right.
So these were athletes at a very young age who are coming up, and they're put into environments where they're Olympians, Olympic hopefuls. But it was from communication right down to physical mannerisms, right on to working with the athlete to teach skill and not worry about outcome, but worry about process. Like, think about the process. And that's the hallmark of that document, is just what you said there, Ann. So important.
Well, that's great.
Because then kids love the process. They don't identify with the outcome. And
I want her to love what she's doing and not be forced to be doing something at age 11. I didn't start playing volleyball till I was 13. And it's like, there's no need to be like hardcore at age 11. I work with enough athletes where I see that and they're miserable. And then their parents send them to me to somehow to make them more motivated and make them want it more. And I'm like, you need coaching, not your athlete.
So so just kind of back to the State of Play Kansas City, and it asks kids what they want out of sports. And the Aspen Institute has asked kids across the country what they want out of sports. They've asked everybody they can find, what do you want out of sports, at youth sports? And the kids' number one answer is to have fun. And the number two answer is to be with their friends. And the number 6 answer is to win. And to get a college scholarship is number 8. And so we've just got to make sure that we continue to ask our kids what they want out of sports. And you're the kind of person that has listened, and you have done your daughter you've given her a wonderful gift. And I love what you're doing. I think that people should know about it. If you want to get in touch with Ann Rivera, it's CoachAnnRivera.com. She is a life coach. She's a athlete coach. She works with corporations and helps build teams and makes people stronger using sports as a metaphor, right? Did I say that right?
And I've been working with Niche AI. And so it's an AI company that I'm partnering with, and I am their human optimization coach.
Cool.
And so it's really using AI too. And so that's been a really cool addition to all of this.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love that. Well, I really appreciate you giving us your time today. You've taught us a lot. Doug, do you have anything you want to add here? And how'd you guys meet?
Oh, we met through Pro Beach Volleyball. Okay. So I was part of the medical staff with the East Coast tournaments. And, we met on the beaches of AVP. And then we met there. We came across each other there. But there were so many athletes, that would come and use the medical services as part of the tournament. And then I took an opportunity to join University of Southern California. and we reconnected there. And so, yeah.
Well, lucky you. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Just one more thing.
Sure.
I mean, with the AI incorporation, and do you see yourself being able to expand your offerings through that? Can you just give like a little insight on that, on how you're leveraging that, and how you want to pivot, maybe utilizing that technology? So many people hear of AI, they're not really sure of how can they harness that and how can that help them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was doing some pretty cutting edge stuff the past couple weeks. I was just really exploring and doing new things. And so I build custom GPTs. So they're like little specialized. So I built a Kobe because you'd see when I was working with the basketball team, like volleyball is my background, not basketball. And so I never would have said yes to go work with the men's college basketball team. Instead, I taught myself everything I needed to know. I built out the lesson plans, all the data, and I built a Kobe. So I uploaded all of his stuff, Mamba mentality. And then I created all the plans that I was doing with kind of the base of Mamba mentality. And so everything that I made for their programming was through the custom GPT. And so normally it might take me, I spent a lot of time I got a master's in education, so I love crafting the lessons and how I'm going to do that. I might spend 20 hours doing that, and I probably did it in 7.
It's crazy.
And then I'm doing the lesson, and so I'll have them put stuff up on the board. I'll take a picture of it, upload it right into my GPT, my Kobe GPT, who instantly gets all the trends, all the data, and I will verbally say it back to the team. And then I can create a visualization right in the moment with everything that's going on with the team. And so I'll be able to pick out their strengths as a team through the lesson that we've done, put it in the GPT, and then I have a visualization that I'll read for them, but then I'll record it in a male voice that's resonates with them a little bit better, with an AI voice that sounds like something that's going to work well for them. And so I've just been weaving all that in. I facilitated a 30-minute drill at practice that I came up with that morning using Kobe, where I was like, this is what's going on with the team. This is what's going on with the team. Give me a 30-minute drill that I can facilitate, not really having experience facilitating basketball, drills. And it was great. And so it's I've just been trying all these new things.
Did you videotape the drills?
I didn't videotape it because I was kind of
that sounds so
doing
cool.
it on the fly.
Sure.
Right.
And it was great.
Wow,
Yeah. So that's just
cool.
one area that I'm doing it, but even just the custom GPTs that I can build to support me. But same mindset, you might have your own team where you need mindset support. You could create a custom GPT that has the background of Mike Gervais, the sports psychologist. He has so much online. You can use all of that to give it an output for you. Help me do something at practice today for 15 minutes because this is what's happened in the past couple games, and I don't know how to address it. What should I do? And it will give you a 15-minute little thing that you can do. That would really help coaches where they don't need somebody like me. I would be great to work with me, but they could create that and then use that while they're coaching.
Right. Wow. That's really
amazing.
Crazy.
Right.
I use it all the time, and it helps me put together what it is that I want to say, when I want to say it, and how I want to say it, and communicate with people like never before. And I think it's a good thing for productivity and for accuracy, as long as you're not getting false. When it tells me that you're a runner and you're actually a volleyball player, then it's not good.
Yep.
So it's not perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do want you to know that the people that we're trying to get to listen to you are the people that can really benefit from listening to exactly what you're saying to them and how you're putting this out there, and I hope that we get more and more listeners to jump onto here. Our target is the parents and the coaches that are caring for our student athletes that are sometimes missing the mark, and the tools are right there in front of them. So All right, Ann Rivera.
Right.
I have a new friend out on the West Coast, out in the Northeast.
That's right. Maybe you guys can bring
Northwest.
me over to Kansas City and let's
do
help
something.
some mindset over there.
Okay, we got some relationships. I'm actually meeting with Coach Bill Self tomorrow, so
That's amazing.
I should tell him about your Mamba GPT.
And as a group, on our software side, and we should really connect offline again, because whether it's AAU basketball, which is big here in Kansas, or some of the teams we're working with.
Sure.
We could probably do some collaboration there. So we'll connect.
Well, this has been another episode of Movement is the Medicine. We're here to promote the benefits of physical activity, exercise, and sports, but more than that, the opportunities to teach our kids how to be better people through movement and through physical activity and through sports participation. Movement as a Medicine is one of those nonprofit opportunities that we're always looking for people to come help us. So if you're looking for something to invest in that is good in this world, reach out to the Shareways Foundation and donate and help us bring more quality guests like Ann Rivera to you guys and learn so much.
Right, amazing interview, and the depth of that, what people can really draw from and pick away and take away from that is just amazing. So happy to share this one.
So glad Doug Hugendijk's back with us. Doug, thank you for being back. I'm sorry you had to go through what you had to go through, but now that we're back, we're going to have a lot more episodes. So look forward to a lot of great guests coming up on Movement is the Medicine. And like I always say, dance like nobody's watching.